Well, as of the last count, there are unfortunately over 200 people here in the Southeast that have lost their lives attributed to that storm Helene that just came barreling through here. Most of the damage has been only about 2 hours from where we are here. So, really, not very far at all. And there's still so many people missing. Probably that death toll will go up, unfortunately. Really, not too far from where we are. We're in eastern Tennessee, and the primary damage has been about 2 hours north of us and to the west in North Carolina. And that damage has been enormous. I just was looking at some of the numbers, hundreds of millions of dollars in damage. 5 bridges, I've been over many of these bridges, completely gone. 14 bridges altogether in Tennessee alone closed. There's been a public health emergency because, of course, the water system, the sewage systems, they've all been affected by the enormous amount of water that came with this storm. And there is a state of emergency here in Tennessee as well, as you might imagine. Thousands of people are still without power. It's really been horrific. And my heart has been hurting for my neighbors, my fellow Tennesseans to the north of me, especially those who are older because, they have special needs, they're less mobile, they have circumstances, health issues, all those types of things. So I thought that on this episode of Boomer Time, it would be worthwhile to not only talk about the impact of this storm, but also talk about what needs to happen as far as emergency preparedness when you're an older adult. This is critical, folks. I really hope that you'll take some time to think about these things, and we're going to move through a lot of important information today. So I will have some of this on my website at nancycogar.com, and you can go there. I love resources, so I'll have all that for you. And I think this is going to be beneficial for you. So as I mentioned, there's been hundreds of millions of dollars in damage estimated here in Tennessee. These areas are areas that are somewhat remote, not too far from Gatlinburg. Some of you may know Gatlinburg. And then, of course, North Carolina. So there's people that have money, and there's people that just don't have much money and are poor. A lot of poor areas through there. So these people are struggling. My heart is really hurting for them. So I had a couple stories I wanted to share with you that I learned about through the situation here, through the storm. The most recent story I heard, there was an older couple, grandmother and grandfather. They were staying with their children, adult children, and they were in another bedroom during this storm. This happened in South Carolina. They heard some noises. They checked on mom and dad periodically. They were fine. Then they heard a really loud noise, and a very large tree fell on the couple and killed them. Can you imagine? Oh, my heart just goes out to people like that. They were hugging in their bed. They were found hugging in their bed. So that's just one story, and I just want to look here. There was a story out of Sarasota also that is in Florida, of course, where, and this is kind of relevant to what I want to talk about today. So they were an older couple. They were out on one of the barrier islands, Siesta Key. You may be familiar with that. The storm came through there too before it came up here. And one of these people was on oxygen. Okay, they have oxygen containers delivered to them. You may know someone or have a family member that does that. Well, if there's a storm, you can't have oxygen delivered to you. And it also makes it hard to get around. They were stuck there. And then the rescue crews couldn't come at some point, and they nearly ran out of oxygen. I mean, that's kind of what I'm talking about. You need to be prepared, for these kind of circumstances. You've heard about the workers here in Tennessee that were at that plant near Irwin, Tennessee, and 11 of them were swept away in the water. Just unbelievable. And one other story I wanted to share was that in Irwin, the police department there, they lost a canine Officer Scotty, German Shepherd, who was trying to help people during the storm. So this, this is impacting a lot of people, not to mention all the damage, not to mention the heartache, but it's still happening. Here's another issue. So, there's a lot of people who have moved here to Tennessee and the Tennessee area, North Carolina. You may be relatively new here, and I'm glad you're watching Boomer Time. But, a lot of folks from Florida, they're just weary of all those hurricanes and storms that came through there, and they moved maybe to Tennessee. Well, I've heard from some of them too, where no one ever expected that a hurricane would cause this kind of damage up here, but it has, and people are really hurting. So I think it's important to talk about that today, and I want to end later today with some thoughts for them, thoughts for the families who have lost people, thoughts for those who are still missing, and thoughts for those who are struggling in some of these areas. They don't have power, they don't have water. Sometimes they can't get things to people. They've been taking mules, which incidentally are raised here in Tennessee, and they're able to get through difficult terrains. And the mules are carrying supplies to a lot of people where roads have been washed out. Just my heart has been hurting for all these folks. So I want to spend some time talking about that, but I do want to make it productive for everyone too, and talk about emergency preparedness, especially for older adults. So you're going to have some good takeaways today, and I hope you'll stay with me. I'll be back. So hello again. This is Nancy Cogar, and it's Boomer Time, and I'm so glad you're here. I have a question for you. What would you need if you had to get out of your home right away? What don't you have that you would need? And where would you go? These are important questions, especially if you are older, have mobility issues, have prescriptions that you need, maybe prescriptions that need to be refrigerated. These are the kinds of things you really need to think about. So we're going to talk about some of these things today. And, oftentimes they're known as the 5 Ps. It's sometimes easier to remember that. The 5 Ps of preparedness. That's people, pets, prescriptions, papers, and photos. What you take, what you should inventory, what you should do with your important documents, how you should have an emergency plan. And guess what? Test that plan before you need it, right? And have a plan B. I always have a plan B. Maybe even sometimes a plan C, right? Well, as you know, we are on video now, and I just wanted to take a minute to acknowledge that. And I'm glad that we're coming to you by video, and I hope you are too. I'd love to hear what you have to think about it and say. You can reach out to me at nancycogar.com. And hey, here's something else. Since we're on YouTube, share it with somebody. Share it with more than one person. That helps our community grow. So I would really appreciate that. Okay, let's talk emergency preparedness for older adults, okay? Now, when it comes to people, all right, people, as I mentioned, can have mobility issues. You're going to need to pack something ahead of time, right? With clothes, comfortable shoes, medicines, emergency kit. I want to talk about what you might need in that emergency kit in a minute, but what about your pets? Do you have an emergency plan for your pets? That, even here in Tennessee, when this storm moved through here, I see lots of people talking about not being able to find their pets, and even larger animals like horses and things like that, looking for places for them to go because it's all underwater right now, or it has been. It's slowly receding, but still a lot of it is still flooded. Take a home inventory. We learned that, unfortunately, here in Chattanooga with the tornado. Something may come through and then how do you know what's where? I was talking to a new client earlier today, and he rode through the tornado. Actually, was in his bathroom, and he fell back, and he said he saw his roof come off. That's not something that you're going to forget. So ahead of time, you need to inventory. I know that may be a strange connection that I'm making there, but you need to be able to make claims. You need to know what you have, and it's better to do that ahead of time. Important documents. This is something I talk about a lot, okay? You need to have those important documents, and you also have to have them protected. Maybe in a plastic Ziploc bag. Have it so that you can grab it and go. You're going to need those documents. You're going to need your driver's license. You're going to need your insurance cards. You're going to need maybe a copy of your homeowner's insurance. You're going to need all of these things, and they need to be handy. And of course, not to mention your will, powers of attorney, all those things. They all need to be protected and with you in a situation like that. Let's talk emergency plans, okay? I think that's something that needs to be done with your family, and you need to practice it. You need to know where you're going to go. People need to know where to find you, right? You may not be able to use your car. These are important considerations. So I looked on the internet at a couple things, and I have some go-to pages that I go to, but I just wanted to mention a few things to you as I'm looking at this. If it is family, have a meeting place, okay? Maybe have a meeting place so that you know where you're supposed to be. Have extra prescriptions. I know sometimes it's hard to do that, but have at least a 6-day supply of medications along with an up-to-date medication list, because your kids may not know the medicines that you're on. That can change a lot. Often, better to have it down. Medical equipment, okay? Blood pressure monitoring, diabetes measurements, hearing aids, batteries, all those types. Extra glasses. These things break, especially when you're moving around in an emergency. So have an extra pair. You'll be glad you did. And also have some written information about treatment. I think that's important. So as far as a disaster supply kit, plan for at least 1 gallon of water per person per day. Need to have some food available. Canned food, dried food. I'm not saying, hunkering down for post-apocalypse. I'm talking about having some things available. Batteries, Handcrank radio. I have one of those. That was a great Christmas present I got from someone one year. Matches, a knife, those plastic bags are good. Tinfoil, disposable cups. This is a great list. And I think we'll have that on the website so that can be available for you. There was another issue I wanted to talk about too, because not everybody lives at home, right? What do you do if you're an older adult and you live in an assisted living facility? What if your parents live in a nursing home? You need to know what that facility's emergency evacuation policy is. They all should have those. You need to know what it is. You need to know what the criteria is for that type of evacuation. Where will they take people? Will they take people? What is your obligation? These are important questions that need to be asked ahead of time. So I just wanted to point that out too, because that's something that someone else is in control of, but you need to be a participant. And sometimes they will not evacuate people. Maybe they won't transport you. That you need to know that too. So this is all important information, and I want you to have it. So yeah, we're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, I do want to spend some time talking about the people that have been impacted by this and remembering them together in some prayer. Well, welcome back. Nancy Cogar here on Boomer Time. You've been given some thought maybe to those questions that I asked you before the break? I hope you are. And more so, I hope that some of the things I've shared today and some of the things I'm going to leave on my website get you thinking and planning. That really be wonderful. I want to talk about some more stories in the aftermath of this storm. There was a Chattanooga pilot, actually, that has helicopter pilot and has been delivering emergency supplies over to some of the more isolated areas. Remember, I told you that a lot of this area is heavily wooded, Cherokee National Forest area. Not the easiest place to get around, but then compound that with all the mud and debris and water that's moved through there. So he has been flying supplies to areas that have been harder to get. His name is Richard Harden. And of course, when he's up in the helicopter, he has a bird's eye view of what's down there. I do want to talk also about something that I mentioned quite a bit here on the show, and that's scams. Okay, so unfortunately, when you have a circumstance like this, the scammers come out too. So just be careful of that. Warn your friends and family about that. You're going to want to see identification. Stick with the main folks, the Red Cross, Samaritan's Purse, county officials. Really, they're the ones that are controlling who's coming in and is helping. So I think that would be a better plan than someone coming to you and saying, hey, can I help you with this? And like I said, if you want to find out more about some of the scams that have been going around, you can always go to my website. You can listen to some of my previous podcasts. And then you can also go to the Federal Trade Commission's site. It's just simply ftc.gov. And they have a lot of the scams, even the scams that have been coming out of this post-storm damage and cleanup. So I would say check it out. As I mentioned early on in the show, did want to take some time to remember and pray for the people that have been impacted by this storm. I've told you often that I'm a person of faith, and I believe in the power of prayer. And I even have said oftentimes that caring for someone can be a very lonely thing. So I pray for you too, if you're in that role. Older people can be isolated. That's also an issue. And then we have these folks in the wake of Helene that have lost loved ones, that may still have loved ones missing, people they can't get in touch with, and just the devastation and just dealing with that. And it really, really hurts my heart. So if you would join me in just praying for these folks and just remembering them, lifting them up, hoping that they get the help that they need, that they would be encouraged by those around them, and that just people that are missing would be found, that they could be brought home, and that people get the help that they need in their hands. Like Mr. Harden, who's flying things into hard-to-reach areas, help the helpers, the rescuers, get the supplies that the folks need there in that area. And we are going to continue to pray for you. So, amen, right? Well, I want to remind you on a lighter note that we have lots of resources on nancycogar.com. And we're on Spotify. You can still listen to us on Spotify. And we are on YouTube. And if you need to reach me about estate planning, anything like that, you can through my website. And you can make an appointment to come and see me. I would love to be able to help you if I can. But in the meantime, all of this is free. I want to get this information in your hands, and that's why I'm doing this. So let me know what you think. I hope you will continue to watch, and I hope you will continue to share. And I will see you same time, right? And we're going to have another interesting issue, and I will continue to share those here on Boomer Time. Okay. Thanks for joining me.